Well, hi everyone, and thank you all for joining us today. I'm Michael Luna, Director of Sales for Todata Analytics, and we're excited to have you with us for what I think will be a very interesting conversation. Today's guest is Nikki Osborn. She's the owner of Todata Analytics, our company, and the former owner and CEO of Meridian Clinical Research. We'll be discussing Nikki's journey building Meridian into a 35-site clinical research network and the lessons that she learned from scaling a successful site network and then exiting that business, and then why she ultimately chose to invest into our company, Todata. We'll also talk about where she sees the future of analytics and AI heading and how organizations can use data to make better decisions. As always, this is intended to be an educational and practical discussion, not a sales presentation. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, feel free to submit them through the Q&A feature on the right-hand side. We'll save some time at the end to answer as many as we can. And as a reminder, today's session is being recorded, and we'll send the recording to everyone who registered today. So before we jump into Nikki's story, I just want to spend a minute introducing our company. And for those of you who may not be familiar, at Todata, we are a data analytics and business intelligence company that helps organizations connect fragmented systems into a single source of truth. The image on your screen is simply a visual showing the type of systems that we can connect to. We work across a variety of industries, including clinical research, accounting, legal, healthcare, and a various amount of other commercial businesses as well. Our goal is to help leadership teams gain real-time visibility into the information they need to make better business decisions. Today, you'll hear firsthand how the need for visibility led to the creation of what eventually became our SiteGrates platform, amongst our other products as well, and how that experience helped shape the company we are today. Nikki's story is unique because she isn't just an investor or an owner. She was originally a customer of Todata. The challenges that she faced while growing Meridian Clinical Research ultimately played a major role in shaping one of the products that we offer today. Nikki, welcome to the webinar. Is there anything else that you would like to add to this before we hop into this?
I don't think so. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We are glad that you're here. So, well, without further ado, just to begin, going back to your Meridian days, what was it that originally attracted you to the clinical research space?
I don't think most people get into clinical research on purpose. Most people kind of fall into it. Nobody really sets out to knowing what the industry is or what it means. And that's kind of how it happened for me. I worked for a family practice doctor who dabbled in clinical research trials. And that's where I first had exposure to it, and where I decided that with a little prodding from someone in the industry, to go ahead and start my own clinical research site, and to identify the physicians that would work with me, and move forward the clinical research industry. So that's kind of my initial exposure to clinical research, like most people.
One question that did pop into my head as you're saying that, where was the first site? Where did you start the company at?
So we originally opened in Omaha, Nebraska. We were very, very small. We had 2 exam rooms and 2 principal investigators and 2 employees. So we were a small little shop in Omaha.
Awesome. What were some of the biggest challenges in those early years?
I think in the first years of owning a site, you're trying to do all of the jobs because you're trying to run lean, you're trying to do quality work, you're trying to control the quality, of, the patient visits and everything that's happening at the clinical research site. And so you're wearing a lot of different hats. My background is nursing, and I had to learn to be a business person. And so I think in those first years, those were, like any small business, the challenges that come along with that.
Very, very nice. What were some of the challenges that came with managing multiple sites as you started to add additional sites? You said you started with a very small, close-knit team. As you started to expand, what were some of those initial challenges there?
Yeah, I mean, the more sites that you manage, the more complicated it gets. You're trying to build a team of people. You can't be at every location at all times. And so you're putting a lot of trust into the folks that are operating those other sites for you and other trial sites. You're also trying to manage a lot of the financial strains that come along with scaling and growing. And, trying to, I think, add the technology where you can to be able to afford it, to know what you actually need versus what you want. And so I think managing people, managing, different locations and geographic regions, comes with its own challenges as well.
So you mentioned, getting the right technology and putting that, the things that were needed rather than wanted. How did you guys stay aligned as a leadership team across those sites?
Yeah, I think it, was sort of organic in the way that it starts for most sites. Most sites, the first thing that they do is they add a CTMS system to track all of their visits, to track the patients, to track their database, things like that. You're doing your QuickBooks and those type of things for the financial aspect. And then as you grow and you have more employees, you have to start adding like an HR platform and things like that. So as a leadership team, as we grew and scaled, it was a group decision. We were always trying to balance the finances of where we spend our money and how we do that. And the bigger you get, the more complicated it starts to get. And you realize that a lot of those technology platforms are really helping you with efficiency on a day-to-day basis. So they start to become more and more important as you're growing. But even as a single site with that CTMS, it's almost imperative now that you have that.
Mm-hmm. What information, prior to obviously implementing the SiteGrades product, what information was difficult to access from those different systems?
I think everything is so siloed. So, your business development folks have their CRM that they're working with. Your operations people have their CTMS. Your finance people have QuickBooks, and your HR folks have their platform. And so it feels very siloed. You're all working together, but you're all really operating under your own platform for your day-to-day workflow. And so, I always felt like I was having to ask for reports from each of those folks. And so we would have our weekly meetings or our quarterly meetings, and it would be just constantly asking for those reports from those individual silos. And by the time sometimes you get them and try to compare within each of those, it's outdated or things have changed by then. So that was always a big challenge for accessing that information.
Yeah, well, that leads directly into our next question, as far as decision making. How difficult was it to make decisions when you had that information that maybe wasn't quite real time, or it was possibly like a ballpark figure, things like that?
Yeah, we would spend days or even weeks sometimes going into our quarterly meetings, everyone just preparing for that meeting to bring all of the information that would help us to make those decisions in those quarterly meetings. And it took a lot of time. And so, everybody's bringing their information. It's very
Mhm.
fragmented. You're making decisions together, but it takes a lot of preparation to be able to do that and not be asking for it constantly on a weekly basis. But to prepare for those quarterly meetings, it would take a significant amount of time for each of those folks to bring it to the table so we could make decisions.
Yeah, just to prepare it, the time
Right.
spent that could have been spent elsewhere. So,
Yeah.
like, just as an example, what did the reporting look like? Was it like spreadsheets? Did you guys create, Excel pivot tables, things like that?
Yeah, pretty much everything, all of the above, because everyone's different too in the way that they want to view the information within their part of the organization. So it was interesting because it would, business development would provide us these reports that were very cumbersome, not necessarily all information we even needed to be looking at. They may need to look at it, but the rest of the leadership team didn't necessarily need to be looking at that. So I think everybody comes from a place of what works for them when you're in that kind of situation where they're running reports out of, for example, Salesforce, or they're running reports out of, for example, the CTMS, like a clinical conductor or a Creo, and, HR is running it out of their platform. So nothing is consistent. It's very, custom to whatever platform they're using.
Yeah. So yeah, you spend all that time to put together a report, and then you have a meeting a week or so later, and then all of a sudden you got old data, right?
Yes,
That's yeah,
exactly.
which is common. Obviously, we hear that a lot
Sure.
with our
Yeah.
clients.
And you can function like that. There's no reason to
Mhm.
say you can't. You absolutely
Yeah.
can function like that. It's just not super efficient and it's definitely not real time.
Hmm. No, it's a great segue into the SiteGrades platform. After you guys, well, now I should probably stop here and go back a little bit. You were the first client of the SiteGrades platform, which it wasn't even a product at that point. It probably wasn't even called SiteGrades.
No,
Before we get into these questions, what was that like? Like how did that all come together?
sure. So, Stephanie Anderson, who ran our HR department at the time for Meridian, used to hear me complain all of the time about the reports that I would have to ask for from everyone and how they weren't, by the time that we would get them and try to compare them, it was like old news. And she came to me and said, "We need to build something that you can see that is in real time, that brings everything together so that you don't have to keep having these same frustrations that you're complaining about every month." And I said, "Okay, that would be great. How much will that cost?" Because that's going to
Hmm.
be every site operator's first question is, I know how I'm budgeting now. How much more is that going to cost us? And I initially had a lot of sticker shock, and I was like, is this necessarily something that we need? Like, do we
Yeah.
need to have this? Because, and Steph said, "I think it'll make your life easier. I think it'll make all of our lives easier if we can see it all in one place together in pretty much real time at that time, so that you aren't having to ask the same questions on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, and a quarterly basis." And so we started to explore it a little bit. I'll be honest, I drug my feet on doing anything for a while. And then I went, and I have a friend who is in a construction business, and I was complaining to him about my frustrations of not being able to visualize things in real time, especially finance and business development. And he said, "I should show you this tool that I had built for my construction company because I had the same frustrations that are similar to what you're talking about. So let me show it to you." So he showed me what they had built, and I was so impressed with it that I went back to my leadership team and I said, "You guys, you've got to see this. My friend Tim built this business intelligence tool for his construction company, and it's exactly what we need." And Steph Anderson literally almost fell out of her chair. She was like, "This is what I have been asking you to build for Meridian for the last year." this is exactly what it is. And I said, oh, well, now I get it. And definitely this is a need. We definitely do need this. So we went to the company who built it for my friend, and ultimately that company today is Todata.
Yep, that's when Ben came into the conversation.
Exactly.
At that point, how many sites? How big was Meridian at that point?
I think at that time we probably had around 20 sites, or just creeping up maybe on 20
Okay.
sites, somewhere in there. I don't remember exactly, but I would say probably 15 to 20 sites at that point in time.
Okay. To hop back into these questions here. So after implementing that product, what changed internally once you had that visibility?
Oh my gosh, everything. So I really felt like, and I think a lot of sites feel this way, like we are firemen and women in an industry where we're constantly putting out fires. We're constantly in reactive mode.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I had come to accept that that's how we ran the business, all of us. We were
Yeah.
always in reaction mode. And once we did this and we pulled it all together, and it didn't happen overnight like it does now, it's so fast now. But at that time, we were
Mm-hmm.
building a brand new product that didn't even exist. So it didn't happen overnight. It took us some time to build it. But the way that we transformed our decision making was incredible. We went from being a very reactive organization to actually making proactive decisions, because we were seeing trends so much earlier in the process than we ever had before. And so I really felt like, I felt like we always had one of the best leadership teams in the industry. But man, as soon as we were able to see all of that information in one place and to make those decisions together, not necessarily on a quarterly basis anymore. Sure, we were still having quarterly meetings, but those
Mm-hmm.
weekly meetings were the place that we were able to look at it from week to week
Yeah.
and make those decisions so much more quickly, when before we would have to wait for the quarter to come before everybody could run their full reports and put them together and those types of things. So it
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
huge impact.
Obviously, you're going from 3 months of results to a daily basis. You're
Yeah,
getting those results on a daily,
yeah,
and you don't
absolutely.
have to stitch reporting together or create
Exactly.
spreadsheets and spend all that time.
Yeah.
Uh, how did it impact the growth of the network?
Well, I mean, I think we better understood our finances. We better understood where we could grow, where we wanted to grow, where it made sense to grow,
Yeah,
because we had the full picture. Where before I ran so much of the company on gut instinct, and
yeah,
I didn't have to do that anymore. Our team had the data to show where we were succeeding, where were we falling short, where did it make the most sense to put, more financial impact into, in order to grow the company in a way that also was appealing to our sponsors and our CROs, and how we could meet their needs. So it was a highly impactful tool to be able to do that.
um, now, from a growth standpoint, this is not a question here, but um, just something I think maybe our viewers would like to know. How did Meridian grow? Was it organic? Was it a mix of M&A? Where did a lot of that growth come from?
Yeah, so early on, it was all organic growth. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then about halfway through, we decided to start acquiring some different sites. Doing an acquisition is not easy. I tell people now, one of the big things when people come to Two Data now and they see our platform and they say, oh, well, this might not be the right time because we're going to do an acquisition. My
Mm-hmm.
response to that is always, this is actually the right time, because this will help your acquisitions go so much more smoothly. Because in my experience, when we were acquiring other sites, they were on different systems. They weren't necessarily on
Yeah.
the same systems that Meridian was on.
Yep.
And so, when you're acquiring another site, you're worried about culture, you're worried about retention, you're worried about keeping those people. The reason that you wanted to acquire them in our experience is they were great sites. They were financially solid, they were performing well, they had quality, they had all of those things. And when we would go in and acquire, what I didn't want to happen is the wheels fell off because everyone was panicking that they were being acquired by another company. So I never wanted their workflow to change. And the only way that we could do that really was with this tool, because we could plug in whatever systems that they were using into our system so that our leadership team was still seeing real-time information from the newly acquired company. And we were having to do really very little immediate integration on their side. So their workflows were staying the same. It should have been treated as business as usual. And we could focus on the culture and making them feel comfortable before we had to. So having this system allowed us to not have to go into them and go, oh, by the way, we're changing you from the CTMS you're using to ours because this is what we're going to use. We didn't have to do that. They could continue to use what they were using, and we could plug it into our business intelligence tool at the time and not have to skip a beat. So when people say, oh, we're going through acquisitions, we're doing all of this, I'm like, this is the perfect time, because now you're going to have that real-time information without skipping a beat.
So on the flip side of that, right, we talked about what it's like and how immensely impactful it can be when you're acquiring. How impactful was it when you went to exit?
Sure. I can't even imagine going through that process without having it, because they're constantly asking for updated information. They're constantly asking for forecasting. They're constantly asking you for performance metrics. And without having that in one place, I can't even imagine how that would have went, because it made it so easy for us to be able to do that. And, easy for us to be able to, even outside of, the exit, that made it a lot easier. But my goodness, I mean, we could look at our year back at a glance, even year to year with the company, and be able to share those performance metrics with everyone in the company very, very easily. Where before, at the end of the year, we would spend a month preparing all of the metrics that we wanted to share with the company as a whole. It literally took us less than 2 minutes to do it and prepare it for our yearly meeting with the whole company. And so it makes a huge impact.
Yeah, and obviously, when you're going through those discussions, it's not like a week or two. It's months.
Yes.
Right. So they're constantly wanting to see trends. They want to see forecasts. Yep. Absolutely. Well, that's another great segue into your investment into our company, Todata. And remind me now, when did you guys actually invest?
So it's not been that long since we invested, but when I sold Meridian, someone asked me, if you were going to do something else, what would you do? And I sort of just off the cuff said, I would invest in that company. And they said, why? And I said, because it changed the way we ran Meridian. It changed the way we made decisions, and we would not have as successful of a scaling and an exit as we did without that ability. And I said, it does not exist in the clinical research industry now. So I would go in, I would figure out how to make an kind of out of the box solution that worked for not only big site networks, but even small sites. Because my goodness, if I would have had something like that in the early years when we were just a couple of sites, even then the decision making that I could have had at my fingertips when I was wearing multiple hats would have been incredible. And so it was I really wanted to provide the industry this kind of solution and make it affordable for everyone.
That's awesome. What excites you the most about the company, the future?
I think that, The product as it stands today is nothing like what it was when we used it. And at the time we used it, I was the biggest proponent of it. It was incredible. But my goodness, the advances in technology from that time to right now, it it just blows my mind. And we have Todd and we have AI and we have all of the things now that are part of the product that I just think, oh my gosh, I thought it created so many efficiencies for us before, but I can't even imagine the amount of efficiency that we would have in the way the product is today. And knowing what the roadmap looks like in the future is even more astonishing to me. It blows my mind.
Yeah, we've got an impressive team here. Our engineers are those guys are extremely impressive in what they can do, and the
Yes.
features that are coming out every month right now are just they're so cool. I mean, I just
Yeah.
really excites us as a company. It's exciting to see where we're going with this. Well, it's a great transition into where we are today as a company. Since Nikki joined Ben as an owner, we've invested heavily into expanding both our team and our platform. Today, Todata supports organizations across multiple industries through solutions like CPA grades, site grades, and law grades, which you see on your screen here, while also building custom analytic solutions for organizations with unique reporting needs. While every industry is different, the challenge is often the same. Data lives in multiple places, and leaders need a better way to see what's happening in real time. Our platform connects data from systems organizations already use. So the beauty is that you don't have to change the systems that you're currently using. We can connect to them, and whether that's a CRM, an ERP, or accounting, HR, operational systems, workflow platforms, or an industry-specific software, our goal is to bring everything together into a single source of truth. And rather than spending time gathering information, leaders can focus on understanding it, acting upon it. We offer a fully managed solution. So our team of engineers, they manage the data feeds. So if those break at any point in time, we go in, we reconnect those. We have a full team of engineers in-house here in Omaha, Nebraska. Everybody comes into the office every day, which is a little unique, but we like it because obviously it's a great company culture, and it allows us just to move a lot more quicker than most companies that might farm that out. Todd is, you'd mentioned this a little bit, Nikki, but Todd's our AI analyst that we've been developing over the last year, and he is an analyst of your data. So he already has a base knowledge of your business, but every client obviously is different. Every industry is different. You have specific languages. So we train Todd on that particular business or industry so that he understands. You can ask him, questions in plain English, and he'll go find you answers. So instead of spending time drilling down through the data, which you can obviously, the data is immense, and a lot of times it's a little overwhelming for people. So Todd's great at giving you quick answers. He's great at building visuals, whether that's bar charts, scatter plots, whatever you can imagine, he can pretty much create. Before we hop into the Q&A, Nikki, is there anything that you would like to leave the viewers, the listeners here with?
Sure. Let's see. I think probably the most impactful thing when we implemented this at Meridian was that, my biggest concern was cost, like any clinical research site would be. And Steph Anderson came back to me and said, Nikki, this will cost us less than a full-time employee, and we will get so much more out of it than that. It's fully managed. We don't have to have an in-house team because that was my concern. How many new people do we have to hire to manage this? And she said, nope, they do it all. It's all fully managed, and it'll cost less than a full-time employee. And she was right. It was more impactful than if I think I had hired 5 people. And the efficiencies that came out of it were well worth it. So I
Yeah,
would
that's
say that
awesome.
was one of the big things. Yep.
And that actually reminds me, one thing I didn't mention was you just said the pricing, but yeah, that's exactly how we price it. Is we want to price it so it's less than a full-time employee, much less actually,
Yeah.
um, and so it's affordable for everybody to use, right?
Exactly.
Whether you have a small business, maybe it's one or two sites, or if you have a robust accounting practice with 200 plus employees. And the implementation to get the platform up and running could be anywhere from a matter of days to a matter of weeks. It just depends on
Yep.
the platforms that are being used, and if we've already made connections in the past and we've already proved that out. So be much quicker. Well, let's see. Let's look at, we've got a couple questions here. Go there. Okay. Let's see. With tools like ChatGPT and Claude becoming more common, how is Data different from a general AI platform? Common question that we hear a lot. Those platforms are great. We actually use all of them here in house as well. Our engineers, our service team, sales, they're fantastic to have as a tool. The one thing that is different is that we offer fully managed service. So with those platforms, you have to manage it yourself. You have to constantly go in and feed it information, or if there's a disconnection with a feed that is connected, a lot of times you're left on your own to go figure that out. With us, again, you have a full team of engineers. A lot of times what we tell our clients is that our team is an extension of your company. So our client service team, they meet with our clients on a monthly basis to ensure that they're getting the most out of the platform, and that they, not only that, but to see what else, would they like to see within the platform. We're constantly taking that feedback and improving the product. Every month we have new feature releases, and those features are included in your subscription. We don't charge additional fees for that. It's a flat monthly fee. And we don't charge by the seat. So there's an unlimited number of seats that you can have within your organization. We want you to give it to as many people within that company that you have, just so that everybody has the opportunity to use that tool. So another question here. This one is for you, Nikki. What ultimately convinced you that visibility wasn't just helpful, but a competitive advantage?
I think anytime that you can provide real data to your sponsors and your clients, your CROs and your sponsors, they see you as a partner in that
Mm.
regard. When you can provide that easily, when you can talk to them about real data that's right at your fingertips without having to say, "Oh, let me get back to you on that," and you can pull it up very quickly, they start to see you as a true partner, and they start to have a different kind of relationship with you than they may have with other sites, because they know you're tracking your data. They know that you're looking at trends. They know that you're identifying problems before they have to call you about the problem. So anytime you can be proactive in that way, I think that's always a good thing.
Transparency too, right?
Yeah.
Just building a stronger relationship. Um, yeah, that also goes a long way. Nikki, this one, we'll take this last one here. What advice would you give leaders who feel like they're drowning in data but still struggling to get answers?
When you have everything in one place in a visual that makes sense to you, and you have the ability to ask questions of your data, you're always going to have better answers and better solutions. When you're fighting your way through tables and reports and everything is fragmented, it's very hard to do that. But when you have it all in one place, you're able to have much better decision making.
Awesome. Well, if this resonates with anybody viewing this, if you have any additional questions, if you would like to schedule a one-on-one demonstration of either our site grades platform, our CPA grades, law grades, or any other business use, if depending on, it doesn't matter what industry you're in, if you'd like to have a deeper conversation, My contact information is listed on the screen there. Feel free to email me, call me directly if you would like, or just check out our website. You can book a time on there as well. We have some calendar links, and 30 to 45-minute conversation. We can see if we can help your organization too as well. Well, that's a wrap for today's session. Nikki, I just want to thank you for sharing your story and perspective. I think there's a lot of lessons in your journey that apply well beyond clinical research. So thank you for joining today. Thank you everybody else who joined us today. We appreciate you spending part of your day with us. If you'd like to learn more about Todata and our solutions, like I said, feel free to shoot me an email or go to our website. We will have another webinar next month. So thanks again for being here, and we hope to see you on that next one.